This lady, all she could remember is my name, wanting her check. She was yelling my name. I need my check to get out of jail.
That's
And
funny.
yeah.
Welcome to Talkin Texas Real Estate, coming to you from the Iron Room at RockOne Realty. Today our guests are Vinnie White, an agent here at RockOne, and Miss Angela Hieb, Texas Legacy Land Title. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Good. Thanks for joining us here on the program. Hey, we're going to jump right into kind of an issue that's been coming up as of late, and it's the scammer stuff, the land deals, all those things that are going on. We've seen tons of posts in social media. Vinny, I know you had one that you've just recently worked through. So can you kind of tell us about what had happened with that transaction?
I mean, it was a Zillow that came through, and he just wanted to list a little piece of land, just a lot, city lot. It really couldn't even do anything with it. And on Prad, he gave me all the correct information, and there was a couple other lots as well under that name, and he only wanted to list this one tiny little lot. And I said, okay, we'll get it listed. I don't know what somebody could do with it, but we'll list it. And then when we tried to go put the signs out, we couldn't really. I had went and put a sign out, I believe. I can't remember if I went and put it out or broker went and put it out. Anyways, we couldn't figure out where to put the sign at. And I told him from the picture on Prad, it was by these two poles. Well, so they put the sign there. A couple days later, someone called, said, hey, why is the sign in my land? Because you wanted to sell it. Well, it wasn't the person I originally talked to. So then we found out there was a fence that was built across all of the lots that this guy said he owned. So I called him and I said, hey, how long have you owned these? And he said, well, I've owned them, I think, for like 8 years. And I said, well, did you know that there's a fence built across all of your lots that someone is now using as their backyard? And he was like, oh my gosh, no, I didn't know that. We're going to check this out. Well, come to find out, he was a scammer, and it wasn't even his land to sell. So,
And when you found that out, what did you do?
well, I called the guy, and of course he didn't answer. I texted him, but we just terminated it. Apologized to the owner of the property. Sorry, this guy assumed your identity. I gave that owner, the true owner, the info of the scammer, so he could try to get a hold of them.
Right.
But of course, you never will. But one thing I can tell other agents is this guy didn't want to use WhatsApp, but this has happened to me before, and he only wanted to communicate on WhatsApp. So if somebody wants to
Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding. Yeah.
if they only want to communicate through that, it's a guaranteed scam. So
Good, man. Well, I'm glad you found it out and it didn't make it all the way to title.
I know.
Because if it makes it to title and it comes across your desk, and I know you've seen a couple of these.
Yeah, we've had a couple. One where it was a buyer and one where it was a seller. The one that they were the seller, same thing, land, 25,000, no big deal, small little lot. They did have an agent, so they listed it with an agent. It got all the way to closing, and the seller was like, well, I want to use my own notary. I don't want to use y'all's. I have somebody at Chase Bank, the whole 9 yards. And we're like, well, that's fine, but we still have to identify who you are. And we have a little program that will identify, well, he wouldn't do it. And the other thing, because that kind of alarmed us, because we're like, yeah, we're not going to just let anybody notarize or whatever, especially if we don't see them and they're out of town. But when he would call in, of course, it was a Hispanic name, so it was Jesus, whatever the last name was. And so he would say, this is Jesus. And so we were like, okay, who pronounces their name?
Ding, 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 ding.
So that was like, yeah, okay, you can't even pronounce the name, but okay, whatever. So eventually, I mean, we obviously couldn't close because he had all the documents and everything, but he wouldn't do that identify program for us. So we ended up figuring out that it was a scam. And we had also called, we tried to look up the true person that owned it, and we left a message. And then the daughter called back and said, no, my dad's not selling his land. It's not for sale. And I'm like, that's what we wanted to make sure. So then we knew for sure it was fraud.
You know what's crazy is you said yours was Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was both of my people that got scammed. They were both Hispanics.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't mean
that's kind of crazy that it, yeah. I don't know if they're targeting maybe a certain.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know,
but both of mine were Hispanics as well.
Because I think a lot of times, because we have a lot of Hispanic people that we close that don't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably assuming, you know, they're not going to know if they don't speak English or whatever.
Just kind of like an easy target or something like that.
And what's crazy is are they just going on Pratt and just randomly picking, like, I have no idea where this guy would have chose this tiny sliver of land.
Yeah, and this one was
For
a
one
weird
itself.
one too. Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense. So
yeah, they have to do some kind of research because, I mean,
yeah.
Right.
And, you know, this one wasn't even for sale at all, like yours was, you know, so.
And it was weird. He didn't want to sell, you know, the other ones, because if he would have sold the whole thing,
It would have made
it would have made more sense. And
yeah,
we may even made it to title if he would have, you know, wanted to list all of it. But when that fence was found to be across all those properties, that's what initially triggered. Hey, wait a second. What do you mean you don't know?
Yeah.
that someone's made a backyard with half of your
property
on your property?
Yeah. Yeah. And then we've also had it where it was a buyer. And this was a property in a surrounding town. I can't remember what town it was, but and it was listed. It was for sale. However, it wasn't the true seller that the buyer was portraying as a seller. I think his end game, he was, you know, he said he was from Canada. He sent us these checks. They don't look like normal checks. Obviously, they're not a cashier's check. He wouldn't send a wire. And we're like, well, okay, we'll have to wait to deposit it before we can close, because he wanted a quick close. And then he sent us this whole email chain between him and the seller saying the seller was backing out, blah, 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 blah. And this span happened with it like in a week. So it was something fast. His end game was to send us fake money and have us wire back the money.
That's what I was going to ask. So like on the buy side, it's some deal with earnest money where they're trying to get something back.
So he sent us $25,000. He wanted the $25,000 right back in a wire, even though that's not right. He couldn't wire to us, but he wanted a wire back, which we thought was a little odd. And we're like, well, it's got to clear our bank first. So we alerted the bank, and they're like, okay, it's going to take us longer because it is out of, you know, country or whatever. And the guy was very persistent on, I need my money now. This lady's already backed out.
Tell him to call JG Wentworth.
Right. Well,
8775 now.
Yeah.
His cash
and what's
now.
crazy too is I had closed that seller before a few years back. So I looked her up. Because it was with another closer. I called her and she's like, it's for sale, but I don't have a buyer. So obviously at that point we're like, yeah. So we just we called the FBI, left it to them, let them do their thing. The other thing that, you know, kind of was weird is when he sent us wiring instructions, you know, to send his money back, and it was like it was like in Minnesota or somewhere. It wasn't even back to Canada. Right. So we were like,
Lots of red flags.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm getting from both of you guys talking through these is there's several moments in there where the ding, ding, ding thing happens and red flags all over the place. But you guys kind of took some extra steps to kind of make sure your people are taken care of. But if it does go, let's say that some of these steps don't get taken. It makes it all the way through title. Nothing gets questioned. Mm-hmm. They close on the property, especially on the sell side. Like your deal, if they're portraying to be the seller, if that goes all the way through, what does the true owner like what happens from that point forward? What's the true owner going to have to do?
Well, at that point, as far as our standpoint is it goes to our underwriter. We put a claim in because we are obligated to do our due diligence. And if we fail to do that, then we are on the line. So we would have to recoup that money back to the true owner. And or if it's the buy side, we lose out of that money.
And if deeds transferred and all those kind of things, is there
Yes.
ever, I guess the question is there ever a point where it makes it to a lawsuit for someone, or can all of that stuff be cleared up after the fact?
Yeah,
And I
that was
get like
just a
title would be
scammer.
on the hook, but
Right. You would have to take it to court somehow. So the buyer or the original owner would have to say, hey, this was a scam, and have that deed or whatever voided, or recalled, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, not acknowledged, basically, in our
I
world.
mean, you can't sue a scammer. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
you don't know where
yeah,
they
it's kind of
live.
where I
They
was
could
going
live
with
in
that. Is like
Nigeria. I mean, I got
exactly.
no idea where
Yeah.
those
I mean,
people
we
are.
haven't really had that situation because luckily we've, caught it before. But I do know, like, on some title companies, like for wire fraud, they're just out that money. I
Hmm.
mean,
And I feel like you can't really ask for an ID, because if I ask that one person for an ID, then I feel I would have to ask every other single person for an ID, because I feel that they would say I'm singling them out to ask for their ID. Why didn't I ask this other person for their ID? And even if they did give an ID, today's technology, I mean, they can easily produce a fake ID with their picture on it and all that information.
Right.
So I don't really see how you get around any of it.
I think there may be a point in just kind of thinking through this, because I haven't had this happen to me yet, but just kind of thinking through some of the scenarios you've talked about and some of these things that have happened. Is once a point like there's so many different red flags. Maybe there's a point that you just kind of throw that out there.
Mm.
You're like, hey, we need your license for whatever. I need to I need to match up some stuff with
well, and
Pratt or
as far
something.
as title goes, you can always say we need to make sure that they have it correctly, so you can convey the deed correctly or whatever. And especially if it's like a Hispanic name or any other nationality, and it's long,
See, that's where
there's
I was getting at. If it's a
yeah.
Hispanic name, I would hate for them to say, well, why
Oh,
didn't
what?
you ask?
Yeah, but their names are so different, though.
Yeah.
Like on our end of it, especially if they are from Mexico or whatever, because then they take on, like the mother's last name, and it's not ever the same.
Hmm.
So we try to look at the IDs and try to match that up because of that.
Right.
But and that's why we use a program that will identify people that don't actually come to closing,
It's good.
because it's so much out there.
So at the end of the day, what I'm hearing you guys say is you need to use a good realtor
Yes.
Absolutely.
and you need to use a good title company and good escrow officer.
That is
Yep.
Catch all those things.
Exactly. Because I will tell you, on our deal, the realtor was like, no, he's legit. Like, she did not believe us. She did.
Oh my gosh.
All the way up to until until we had the true seller call.
Right.
She did not believe us at all.
That is crazy.
I know. I'm like, I want the deal to go through as much as you do, but we can't.
I would just say for sure the biggest red flag is WhatsApp. I mean, if they want to use that, I would just say, no, sorry, I can't help you. If you want to communicate regularly, that's fine. We'll send each other text messages, but not on WhatsApp.
Yeah. No, that's good. All right. So switching gears for a minute,
Okay.
just kind of get some background on you. Vinnie, how long have you been in real estate?
8 years. Well, 8 years in August.
Okay. And how are you liking it?
I love it. I wished I would have did it when I turned 18 years old. I would be retired in Hawaii. But
Right.
until Joe Biden became president and he killed my business, but it's coming back. Thank God for Trump.
This is a
Trump, if you're
non-political
listening, thank you, sir.
podcast. No, I get it, man. I get what you're saying. And I can't tell you how many times I've said that I wish I would have known,
Oh yeah, for sure.
real estate.
I mean, it's changed my family's life in ways I just would have never thought until recently, but it'll get better.
And how are you liking RockOne?
I like RockOne a lot, actually. You guys do a lot for us. I feel it's a real family-based place. That's how I feel about it.
We're glad you're here with us. What did you do before real estate?
I made teeth, crown, bridge, dentures, I've made a lot of famous people's teeth. We made, I don't know, probably 8 players on the Oklahoma City Thunder's gold grills.
Really?
Oh yeah. Was it Andre 3000 or Andre 5000, whatever his name is, the rapper? We made his gold grill. We've made Charles Manson's brother's dentures, and it literally said on the bottom of the lab script, "This is Charles Manson's brother."
Good.
My dad made Ross Perot's 2 front teeth.
There's going to be people out there listening that aren't going to know who Ross Perot is.
Yeah, I know. It was a good thing to do, but when my dad passed, I decided I couldn't do that business anymore without him. So it was a fun thing to do. I've made a lot of teeth in my life.
Right.
Every time I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, wait a second, can you make me something? Can you, I got a tooth that I need it's called a flipper, a 1-tooth flipper, kind of like a partial." And I'm like, "No, I'm sorry, I don't have that. I don't have that material anymore."
That's why I was just fixing to ask you if you could still, like, that's your side hustle from real
Right.
estate.
One, it's against the law. It's practicing
Okay.
dentistry without a license. But no, I don't have that material anymore. So
Awesome, man. Well, that's a neat information to know about
Yes.
you, all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
And Angela, what about you? How long have you been an escrow officer and involved in title stuff?
I have been in the business for 30 years, a long time. I've loved
You were
it.
like 7 when you started.
Of course
I'm sure
I
of
was.
it.
Of
Yes,
course I was. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I'm still 25. So,
There
hey.
you go.
No, yeah. It's definitely, you love it or hate it, which I happen to love it. And, in the title industry, too, you don't just choose to be in the title industry. It's something that someone drags you into, or for whatever reason you end up doing title. It's not like, that's what I want to grow up to do.
I want to be an escrow officer.
Exactly. I think I'll just
What did
do
you
that.
want to do when you were growing
I
up?
was in nursing school, and I had 1 semester left, and I ended up having my youngest daughter. And after I had her, everything grossed me out. I couldn't do it. Like, everything grossed me out. So I couldn't finish. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with my life now? So I ended up doing a temp job at a title company. And I'm like, this is kind of interesting. I could probably do this. And worked my way up from receptionist to part owner of a title company. So it's been kind of crazy.
That is awesome. So did you grow up as a little kid thinking I was going to be a nurse?
Absolutely.
That's what you were going to do?
Yep. I wanted to help people, and that was my goal in life, is to be a nurse.
Well, I can tell you're still helping people, just in a different way. So
Right. Yeah. It's just a different kind of help, which I still love. So, yep.
good.
Absolutely.
And I know, like, just in closing at other title companies, talking to some of the other escrow officers, a lot of them will go back to, hey, I was trained by Angela. So you
That
got
is
to do a lot of
true.
those things.
Yeah, that's one of my passions, is training. I like to make sure everybody knows what they're doing and why they're doing it, and even the customers that come in and close, they need to know what they're doing and what is important, and how it's going to affect their lives. It's a big step, so I feel like that's super important.
So what's your favorite part being an escrow officer?
My favorite part is the closing, where you can help them and guide them and make sure they don't get scammed, because there's a lot of, crap that they get in the mail. So just making sure they know, in the homesteading and all that they know what they need to do after, after the closing, because, the closing is a small step, but it's a big step. So that's kind of what I feel.
it's the best step.
Closing is the best step.
Funding is the best.
Yeah, there you go. I was just fixing to ask you, what's your favorite part of real estate?
Closing and funding.
Closing and funding. Is there a particular type of client that you like to help?
No, I don't have. I like to help them all.
Yep.
I get satisfaction when somebody telling me, "Hey, I'm looking for this, this, and this," and I find exactly what they're looking for, and they're like, "Oh, thank you." I really enjoy that.
Yeah. And I think it's multifaceted when it comes to real estate, because, whether you're helping somebody buy their first home or their 51st home, it's just different.
Yeah.
But knowing that you're the guy or the girl or whatever, helping them accomplish whatever goal it is good. I do think there's a little bit of like in a first time home buyer, just because they've never done it before, and the information is just it's a lot more. Yeah, and you're explaining every little detail, and then when they finally do get to the closing table,
Yeah, and that's
like how
my
elated
favorite
they are.
part. Yeah, because on my end of it, if they've done it a million times, they're like, yeah, I'm just going to sign and go. Yeah, no big deal.
Takes about 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. And on first home buyers, they're just sitting there all scared, and you're like, okay, this is,
Yep.
So that's where my heart lies, was with the first time home
Also,
buyers.
when you're talking to someone and they say, we can't buy a house. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you can't buy a house? Have you tried? No, but we got this going on, this going on. And I said, listen, we could sit here all day long and talk about whether or not you can or can't buy one. But the only way to truly know is to fill out that mortgage app. And, 9 out of 10 times they fill that mortgage app out and we're closing on a house,
Yep.
And they're like, thank you so much. We could speculate all day long, but.
My favorite is I have bad credit.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, what's bad credit? 620? And you're like, and then you just kind of go from there. I can't tell you how many clients have said their bad credit was, way above where it has to be to qualify for a mortgage. But it's just lack of education. And that's why,
Exactly.
Who you use as your realtor and who's guiding you through that process is a big deal.
I mean, you could even get FHA loans right now, within the fives. If you got a 5 credit score, 580, you could still get an FHA loan. Mm-hmm. So I think I saw an ad the other day. They were doing them at 500 credit scores. So,
yeah.
I mean, you probably have. I mean, I don't know any details about it. You probably have to pay a little higher fee or something, but still get yourself on.
Where there's a will, there's a way. And even if not, you guys are listening to this. Even if your credit score is not where it qualifies, it doesn't take long to get it up to
not at all.
Getting qualified. And working with a good loan company, they can guide you through the steps to do that.
Alliance Credit Union who I recommend. During the process, they raised my brother-in-law's credit 25 points during the process of the mortgage I mean, his credit raised, it didn't lower. So it was awesome.
Yeah, they've been really
tremendous
good to work
job.
with. Yeah, that's good. All right, so my favorite question of the day. The craziest thing that's ever happened to you while on the job.
Angela, you can go first.
Oh, you want me to go first? Well, I have several stories, but one is I did a closing with a seller that was totally cracked out and was hoping and praying that, they understood what they were doing, but they wanted the money, so I figured they understood what they were doing. She looked down the whole time and was like shaking, and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. The boyfriend was in the corner with his hat down, and the realtor was in there, and we did the closing, and the buyer came in, and then called them, let them know their money was ready. And what I didn't know is that the realtor had called the cops because she knew they had done a breaking and entering somewhere else, and this car, and at the time my office was right off of I-40, and there was cops out there, had the trunk open, the car doors open, and this lady, all she could remember was my name, wanting her check. She was yelling my name. I need my check to get out of jail.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm not going out there.
Probably a wise decision.
I'm like, I am not going to get involved. But I told one of the cops, I was like, you can come in here and I'll give it to you, and you can give it to her, but I am not going back out there. It was crazy. We get some crazy things.
Did they have the dogs out?
No, they didn't, but they had that car all stripped out and thrown up on the trunk and everything on top of the car. Yeah, it was a lot.
I love it when they bring the dog out. Yes, get him out.
Get them, yeah, but it was crazy.
And I know a few of your stories. So which one are you going to share with our
So
listeners?
I'm going to share my flea story.
Okay.
I was showing an investment property, and there weren't any floors in the bathroom. So I stepped down to kind of bend down to see what all they did in the plumbing, and got out. And as I was walking through the house, I kept slapping my legs. So we went out the back door, and I just happened to look down, and I just had brand new shoes, my lucky hat that I've had forever, and I had fleas all over me.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to strip down to my boxers in front of my clients in the backyard, running around. I ran in my car. They started getting undressed too. And went home and my kids are saying, "Why are you in your boxers, Dad?" So I tell them the story. My wife is like, "What? You drove home? You drove in the car with fleas?" And she just started tripping out. It was funny.
That's hilarious. I'm imagining Vinnie running around the yard in his boxers right now. You guys are welcome.
It was something else.
That's good. Well, guys, thank you for joining us on Talkin Texas Real Estate today. Thank you guys for joining us. Until next time.
Have a good day.
All right.